Thanks so much for being with us. First of all, your film, The Blazing World, what a trip. That was absolutely wonderful, wonderful experience for me at least. I'm a big genre fan. I
Thank
wanted to let
you.
May open the conversation a little bit with the question she's got.
Hi. Can you explain how your Blazing World evolved out of and away from Margaret Cavendish's Blazing World? And this book was now regarded as one of the first works of science fiction fantasy.
Mm,
Um, and obviously, there's a bit of an homage to her and to the work with your film. Why did you decide to name your film and the protagonists in honor of Cavendish and her work?
yeah. Um, the film does not resemble Margaret Cavendish's novel necessarily, but I was inspired by her as a woman, and I was inspired by her, just world building and imagination, especially at that time. It was, pretty big. And so to me, Cavendish was laying out this fantastical sun world, with this like childlike creativity and imagination. And I was inspired to take her Blazing World more symbolically, especially as I fleshed out the story, on my own, that had been kind of coming to me in strange recurring dreams that I had while I was writing a paper on Margaret Cavendish at school. And so this Margaret's fantasy world, this Blazing World, Margaret's fantasy world, is a reflection of trauma that occurred in her childhood and is essentially a reordering of her universe. And that's kind of what I gathered from Margaret Cavendish's work. Was she, number it's the fantastical component to her husband's scientific journal. So I was inspired by that duo as well. My husband did the score. So yeah, but it just seemed to me that there was something there. There was something interesting about taking Cavendish's Blazing World symbolically as the point of liberation for this Margaret's psyche, and using fire as a natural symbol of transformation and becoming who we're meant to become. Um, and just the idea that we repeat what we don't repair. All of those things really resonated with me as I fleshed out the script.
So I really glommed onto this "we repeat what we don't repair" line, especially when watching the film. And I was curious because fantasy and horror and genre films in general seem to be more and more often these days used as a tool for processing sort of
Yeah.
personal and cultural grief and unresolved trauma. Um, what was it that sort of drew you to this genre specifically to tell this story?
Mm. Well, I'm a horror, like sci-fi genre freak at heart. Always have been. So I've always wanted to make movies that sort of have a surreal kind of magical quality to them. But I've been a really big fan of horror specifically for the past, like 10 years. I think some of the most exciting movies, um, you know, have come from that space recently. And I've always found the horror genre to just be thematically really gut-wrenching and the best way to explore what we're afraid of psychologically. Um, in therapy, I read this the other day. I don't even know who said it. In therapy, they say, "Tell me what you're afraid of, and I'll tell you what you've been through." And I feel like, yeah, that's kind of what I glean from horror, and that's why I love it.
Margaret is clearly a victim of chronic and or complex traumas. She's exposed to the volatile relationship between her parents. We aren't certain if her twin sister Lizzie actually drowns in the family pool as a result of parental neglect, or if Lizzie is Margaret's alter ego, perhaps suggesting Margaret's innocence in the form of Lizzie perished that day in tandem with Margaret witnessing her parents' violent exchanges. who exactly was / is Lizzie to Margaret?
Well, I obviously wanted to, you know, make it subjective, make it multiple interpretations, and you can either see Lizzie as a real death or the death of Margaret's inner child. Personally, for me, it was the death of her innocence. But I think you could read it both ways, or you could see it and interpret it both ways. But that's just what it means for me.
Uh, I want to go back because I'm a horror nerd too, and just I feel like throughout the film there are so many of these echoes of previous works, and I think what's so interesting right now in this sort of wonderful heyday of pastiche genre mashups that we're in right now is that you can sort of use these cinematic nods as like a shorthand to get to the
Sure,
psychological state of a
sure.
character. I wanted to just pick your brain about what your influences were for this film specifically, but also uh, what are some of the films you grew up loving? And
Sure. Well, the first horror film that I ever saw was The Shining, and I that's, you know, all's over this movie. And I also grew up just watching Hitchcock and classic horror, like Rosemary's Baby was really big for me in like middle school, and just watching, you know, watching the greats, Dario Argento, and then recently, like as I was writing the script and really kind of self-reflecting on the character and the material, I was really into Ingmar Bergman, and then obviously Guillermo del Toro is like, ah, so a lot of different influences, and I love to wear them on my sleeve. I'm a cinephile, and I wanted to make a film that um where there's just like lots of Easter eggs that to get excited about, and I do it in an incredibly loving way. Like I'm the biggest fan of everybody that you know, am sort of giving a wink to, and I hope kind of using it as inspiration and then taking it to a new kind of place. But um, yeah,
I wanted to jump in really fast and just say that a film like this is really hard to separate from the autobiographical when there is um, you're in the director's chair, you co-wrote it, you star in it, and it's a project you've been working with for a long time. Um, can you is I don't know. I look back at your history as an actor, right? And from the early time doing like the Disney Channel side of things to now being moving into this sort of darker tone, darker realm with things like you
mm,
know, Rolls and Grimm and the Scream TV series and stuff like that. I wonder at what point you became interested in telling your own stories instead.
yeah. Well, that Disney show, I was 15 and a babe in the woods. I I've always been the same person. It's just kind of the roles that I was afforded. Um, and I, I mean, this sounds like really silly, but I feel like if I have like lighter, you know, maybe like blonde hair, that kind of like put me in some role that is like that. But I mean, I got really sick of being um, kind of told what roles that I can play, but further than that, I was like, wait a second. I mean, this whole process has been a long journey of finding my voice, and like I said, I've always like my favorite band in high school was Animal Collective, but I was like on a Disney show, so it was like a bit of a like, huh? And so y- yeah, it's been a journey of empowerment to be able to kind of own what I am or what I think I am. And um yeah, I I feel like it's been everything's a culmination to this, and like this is a mission statement for me. Like, this is who I am as an artist, and the things that I've acted on in the past are really great projects, but they're by other people. They're not by me. You know, I'm just a talking head. So I wanted to do more than that.
Thanks for that.
The Blazing World, kind of at an atmospheric overview, subjectively reminds me of one of my favorite films, The Fall, a film that deals with issues like finding meaning in tragedy and engaging with magic both in and beyond the dimensions we perceive. The characters exist between reality and fantasy, and viewers lose themselves in exotic realms that are awash with color symbolism. And your film explores the metaphysical light against the shadow realms. We begin the film in kind of this fog of cisgendered or emotionally hued blues and pinks, and perhaps Margaret's third eyes awaken when she vomits the hypercolored pink substance. Can you explain the color symbolism you chose to use in your film?
Yes. So my DP and I and our gaffer too is a big part of this, but we sourced how hard we wanted to go with the color depending on how much oxygen we thought we had that she had in her brain in the bathtub. So obviously it gets more and more psychedelic the longer down the track that you go. But just pointing out the pink, as you mentioned, that was a part of the original Seed dream and a part of the inspiration. And I had always seen it as if you had put the initial trauma in a blender and liquefied it. And it's like this connection between this deep part of her psyche that is dormant and needs to be expressed and expelled. And I love the pink because of the pink dresses on the little girls at the beginning, and and just like kind of inverting that innocence and making it really kind of disgusting. That was the goal there. But it's like the liquid tying the two worlds in my mind. And then with the red orb, I wanted that red, like the passion of that hallway, because that's it's like I wanted to be like ceremonial almost. And to me that's kind of what the red and then the shadows in the hallway, they're dark, and they're all of the nuances of her shadow self that want to destroy her but are ultimately the light as well. So yeah, there's I could like literally talk all day about the color stuff, but
we wish that you could.
One thing, I just want to bug you about writing lines for Udo Kier, because I can't even imagine. The words that are coming out of his mouth are so perfect for him, and they're delivered so perfectly, and they will forever just sort of like rest in my psyche if I see a candle or something. What was that
Oh my
experience
God,
like?
that makes me so happy to hear that. I mean, I wrote the role for Udo Kier. I've always been a massive fan of his, from everything that he's done, but particularly from The Kingdom, the Lars von Trier miniseries. And like when I saw him as Ike Krug in that, as like he's the devil's son, and he's got his beautiful face and his tiny baby body, and I was just like, I was sort of in the process of I had just started writing, and I was like, Lane, that is Udo Kier. And so when we sent the script to his manager and he dug it, and we got like an email from him at like 3 a.m. like, I really like the script and I want to do it. And I was just like weeping because he really just catapulted all of it forward. But writing for him is a dream come true. And he just has such a life.
Yeah, there's something just inherently sinister, but like deliciously so.
Yes,
There's
yes,
a
yes.
lot
But
of,
like
intoxicating.
Yeah. Yeah. And he had all kinds of ideas. I mean, he's full of creative ideas. He had like, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And at the end of the day, we'd have to be like, okay, like Udo wants to do a couple of other things. And so, let's get set up. And which is obviously kind of a nightmare for schedule. And we are shooting in the pandemic and, all of these things, but we had to accommodate Udo here. We had a request. And sure enough, I mean, there's a couple of things in there that were just like, he's like, I need to do this. And it's awesome. So it's amazing to work with an actor like that.
Love hearing that. That's wonderful. Um,
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Zack.
yeah, go for it, me.
One of the questions I wanted to explore, your protagonist, Margaret, creates the psychological parallel universe as a result of these childhood events, but it's not entirely clear that the realm is truly a safe haven and a healing escape route. How would you describe the true nature of this realm?
I would describe it as both dangerous and healing, but only healing if you understand and accept the danger. If that makes sense. I think people are really afraid, or I think we as like a culture and as a society have been programmed to be really afraid of the darkness. And and I don't necessarily think that's right. I think that the sadness at the end with, Udo's character, Lynette, like when he's dying, is like he wanted to lure her in to kill herself, but she but all he needed was to be seen and heard and forgiven and accepted too. And that just imploded the entire world. So it's about accepting accepting the trauma and loving the trauma because it's a part of your story. And so that's kind of what I was exploring there. And it is both healing and dangerous. But I think that oftentimes with sort of stories about mental health and maybe the struggle of depression is like it seems like it's one or the other. So I wanted to like avoid that kind of dualistic meaning and try to make something that was like a full circle.
Well, speaking of full circle, I guess we're running out of time. I could seriously sit here and pick your brain all day long. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being with us. But
These are like such, it was so great to talk to you guys. And
well,
thank you for showing the film.
thank you
So
so
much.
much for making it. And yeah, wish you could be here at the drive-in with us while we're watching.
Me too. Me too.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your film.
Thank you. Thanks, you guys.